Welcome everyone to that one Goosebumps podcast. So tonight I am joined with Saw Guy Podcast, Goosebumps Now, Josh Reviews Incorporated.
What's up?
And Reviewer Beware.
Howdy.
And then in a minute when he comes back, Frank will be here too.
Okay.
So tonight's book that we're reviewing is The Cuckoo Clock of Doom. So because Josh wanted this book to be done, Wasaki, go ahead.
So, Cuckoo Clock of Doom is the 28th book in the series, and it's about a kid named Michael Webster. Basically, it's a time travel story, in a way, and where Michael tries to get revenge on his sister for all the torment he's given him for the past years of his life by getting her grounded for touching the clock. Because
when he touched the clock, what happened?
He gets sent back in the time over and over again, reliving his different birthdays. Since he just had his 12th birthday. So he goes back, and I think it's his 12th birthday again, and then it goes back to his 8th birthday, so it's almost 0.
What Josh Wasaki's forgetting to mention is when he fucks with the clock, he knocks off a number on the clock.
It's a date. And in that, hitting the date, he goes back, he's able to turn it back, and he goes back to his 12 weeks after, right after he flipped the clock, or flipped the cuckoo. And he's like telling him to Mom and Dad, I love you, and the lunch is ready. And they're like, okay, I'm gonna go get Tara. And he's like, Mom's like, who's Tara? And that date he hit was the day his sister was born, so his sister's not
Hey, she's my invisible friend, Mom. Be gosh. Twist plot. It was my best friend's invisible.
And then he basically said with a smile on his face that I'll go back one day and fix it, maybe. But I'm going to drop you every once out for a while.
He ain't going back to that bitch. All right. So,
I'm going to tell you this. I read that book way back in 1994. I'm the only boy out of 4 sisters. I swear, dude, I wish I lived that fucking life.
Okay, well, Reviewer Beware, please go now.
Well, first off, I also have 4 sisters and a brother, so... Oh, shit. I can relate a little bit. See, well, this book isn't going for, necessarily, being, really, truly scary. It kind of lives in the realm of
science fiction.
Science fiction-y, and it almost makes you feel like a sense of cringe, ooh, I had to go through that as a kid. Ooh, it's like, for example, we reviewed Calling All Creeps and how a book like that makes you hate middle school. This book makes you remember things you should have hated about being a kid.
yeah.
Like being a girl and not being able to tell her, but either your best friend or someone close to you is claps on you for it.
Yeah, basically. And honestly, I have to give R.L. Stine this. Often, I have criticized his introduction of an annoying character and found it to be just inconsequential noise, but he got it right here.
With Tara?
He got it
No,
really
there's no
well.
inconsequential noise. She's a, pardon my French, B-I-T-C-H.
She's not even real.
Well, here's what's interesting. Yeah, we could sit here and say that, but at the end of the day, it's just... The thing is, the book just feels like it has a darker, harsher tone towards the ending, because at the end of the day, we could say how bad she is, but then we remember, they're just kids. They're all way younger than all of us. When you're that age, sometimes you don't really know what it's like to be nice or be kind, and it's you don't know what it's like to not be mean, so it just gives it a certain, entity to it because of that, because I'm not looking at, when I read, I didn't look at oh, this terrible 7-year-old kid just got their comeuppance. I looked at the book wow, this is what happens when
you fuck with time.
You put hands in a kid. You get into the mentality of a kid who's dealing with another really mean kid.
Well, I guess you could say you wear in the shoes of another person.
Yeah.
If I can step in real quick and just say, I understand what you're saying, viewer beware, but what I'm trying to say is, look at it from another point of perspective. even though you're a kid at 7 years old, you still know from right from wrong is to be nice, how to be nice.
I disagree. You're not really well nuanced in right from wrong.
You don't know nuance, you still have a concept.
I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I'm going to tell you this, Wasaki. We didn't get an introduction to their parents. How do we know that she didn't live in the cupboard and her dad didn't beat and rape her every day? Maybe that's why she's that way.
Bruh.
You only see a small window of it.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just saying. You don't know the entire life story. So,
Possible?
you never know.
I wouldn't say so because for one reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you wrote the fucking book.
If you're just joining us now, we found out that Josh Review Inc. actually had written the Cuckoo Clock of Doom and R.L. Stein stole it from him. We'll bring you more details as we find out. Back to you, that one Goosebumps podcast. More at 11.
Excuse me, R.L. Wasaki.
By the way, can we include the parents in this book as far as terrible Goosebumps parents? This is definitely a book that has terrible Goosebumps.
Oh yeah, they're horrible.
Very bad.
They're horrible.
Horrible parents.
You know what? Their kids spray ketchup on the kid, and they call him a turd because jerk spell backwards.
What this sounds like?
Oh, yeah,
You got beat up by a girl when you were that age.
Kids gonna think, oh, I can just keep doing this crap because I'm always gonna get away with it.
Well, you know what I love about this story is that there's so many things that you don't know too much about. You don't know too much about the parents, and like you said, you know, they probably beat the shit out of the daughter. They probably raped her. You don't know. You know, like, when you brought that up, I was like, oh shit. And then also, about it too, is, you know, how were the parents like? Obviously, they blame the brother all the time for everything, but how were they as parents? Were they the type of parents that, you know, whipped their kids' ass in public? Were they the ones that just didn't give a shit? You know, and
I see from the book, I see it from the book in the story itself. It doesn't seem like that with the with the kid when he's a baby. They show genuine worry and care for him. They show a lot of things. I don't think they're that kind of parents.
Dude, that's because they're first-time parents. Wait till they have that second kid. They don't give a fuck.
True,
What are you, an only child?
It's easier with the same kid.
well, you know, I like what the TV show did, how they showed an episode that they were older parents and stuff like that, but there was some things that the TV show missed out, you know, from the book. Little things here and there, but I mean, for the most part, the bulk of the story was the same. But, you know, I love how R.L. Stein, he did a great job talking from the kid's perspective. You know, we can agree or disagree whether they knew or not knew what was right or wrong, you know. Like I said, from my experience, when I read this book in 1994, I had 4 sisters, and man, they drove me up the fucking wall. So, I mean, you know, it's
Hey, Brandon, can I invite you to join the podcast?
Yeah.
You can kiss Frank as soon as we hang up, bro.
I kept getting interrupted, so here we go. Frank has something to say.
You can play footsies later. Let's get through this.
No, I'm joking. Okay, so I like the book, but I'm definitely going to agree with Dalton that you don't really know what the parents are like behind the scenes, because they could be, you know, like one of them's like a drunk and one's a drug addict or something, or, you know, one wants to pull out that belt and say, "Come here, boy, it's time for your whipping, boys."
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to tell you this now. I was 8 years old when I read this book. Real quick, I was 8 years old when I first read this book.
You didn't read this
And
book
even
when you
at
were
that
fucking
point,
8. I'm nah.
I was like, at the end of the book, I'm like, you got what you deserve. That's it. I'm done.
All I'm saying
All I gotta
is,
say
what
is
you're
this.
telling me, and I dropped out of college, I'm not a psychology major. It sounds like you were definitely tormented and or beat up by a girl when you were around that age he was in the book.
No. I was
Okay.
8.
Oh,
Name one thing you liked and didn't like about the book.
Okay, let's start with Reviewer Beware.
What I really liked about it is the twist, absolutely, first off, and just the build-up with Tara is good. And I generally, for the reasons I stated, that's kind of why I enjoy it.
All right, next, Saw Guy
It's
Podcast.
still really good.
You know, I love this story because it was unique and different, and it gave you the perspective of the kid, how he was going through all that stuff. And at the time when this book came out in 1994, me and a bunch of other my schoolmates, you know, we were in second grade and shit, we would all look like we all had the same thing. We all had a sister that we didn't like. And so they made it very relatable. But the thing is, they had a Twilight Zone-esque, like, plot with it. How he would go back into time, and then the twist at the end where he knocked off the number, and then he didn't have his sister born. It was just like, holy shit, that's like Twilight Zone for the kids, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And I love that aspect, because now you start asking questions about, okay, and it starts making you think, like, how did this story come about, and it craves you to want more, but then they never went back and made a sequel or explained anything, so that's the myth of it. And this story was one of those ones that gets kids hooked on to horror,
Yep.
Yeah.
Brandon Symes, say one thing you liked or didn't like.
One thing I did like was how he just skipped on his sister being born.
Okay, Josh Wasaki.
I'm gonna go real quick and give a shout out to our boy Dalton, the man who does the editing and the recording for us.
Yeah.
He did a video a while back called Top 10 Sequels, and this book was on it. And he explained how he might have gone back in time, but the fix it is
Yeah, there's a detailed explanation of how things could go if you watch that video. I'm going to jump in here before, I forget to say something, since I didn't get to say something last time. I think the story was really good with how it messed with time, because whenever you bring time into any kind of story, it usually really makes it bad or complicated. I'm sure you guys have seen a movie or TV show where they put time travel in and it just fucks it up. And they didn't do that with this. So, I can appreciate that. There was potential for a sequel and or even a continuation somewhere down the line, and they didn't take it, so that's questionable. Hey, we gotta get to ratings. Starting with Wasaki, since he started us off, give me a rating that isn't 55 minutes long.
okay. I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10.
Wow, for the book. Alright, reviewer beware. Rate it.
Just because it feels a little bad, I'm going to go 7.5.
Fair enough. Saw Guy Podcast.
I know you're all going to hate me on this rating, but I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10.
Fair enough.
Yeah, sir.
Brandon and Mrs. Frank. Mrs. Anne Frank. It's Anne Frank.
Mrs. Frank, for what? The book. 7.5 for me.
Nope, that's a collective rating together. It was a 5 for me, dude. It was not that amazing.
So then gets a 7 out of 10 on average in the book.
Yes. C+! plus.
The episode I actually prefer to the book. It condenses the story more. I prefer the episode. Really good episode.
Exactly.
The episode a quick rating, though?
Yeah, well, fuck it. Let's rate the episode. Go ahead, Josh Wasaki.
Actually, 8.5.
I would say 9.5.
I'm going to go with 8 for the episode, because that episode was damn good.
8.
6.
It
It just wasn't that interesting. I'm sorry. It's not.
I averaged it. It gets an 8.
Yep.
So it's a B.
Cool.
Okay. So, closing statements.
Okay, closing statements.
Starting with Wasaki.
I really like the book. Again, I said it was the first book I ever collected and read and reread. It's also the only book that made me clap at the very end when I first read it, so...
Oh, last page. I just... Yes. Yes. You fucking clapped?
Oh my God, you killed your sister!
Okay. Beware.
I feel like this podcast, we have a habit of reviewing books that seem to have all the twists I like this one, Shock Street, Tech, Mutant, Calling All Creeps. We're just reviewing all the books that apparently have great twists.
Fair enough. Saw Guy Podcast.
This is one of my, I guess you could say, middle favorites of my book, because of the whole time travel thing. And the fact is, I like this book, but you have to really unlock your mind and have your imagination run wild to make it pop.
Brandon Samay.
I like the book. Oh yeah, Brandon Samay, it's signed.
I know, but that's how Josh says your name, so hello, Brandon Samay.
Yeah, I know.
Careful, your last name is one letter away from Simp.
Ooh!
You want to die, huh? You want to die? You want to get the belt?
Yes, I fucking do.
You underestimate our generation as a whole. You anti-boomer. All right. With that being said, this has been that One Goosebumps podcast.